Welcome to the Wood Turning Workshop. Today we're going to be working with one of my favorite things to turn, Banksia pods. They're like pine cones on steroids. And we're going to be making this beautiful lidded box with an ebony finial and base and a Purple Heart mate between the two pieces. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stay tuned.
The Wood Turning Workshop is made possible in part by
Woodcraft since 1928, providing traditional and modern woodworking tools and supplies to generations of craftsmen. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Easy Wood Tools, offering a full line of wood turning tools with replaceable carbide cutters.
Well, the inspiration for today's project is actually my sister. Her birthday's coming up, and bless her pea-picking heart, she has bowls, cookie cutters, rolling pins, everything useful you can imagine under the sun. So I thought I'd give her something that's not useful. A box with a lot of holes in it. That's where the Banksia pod comes in. But it's pretty, and since it has holes in it and it's not useful because it can't hold anything, that makes it art, right? The tools we're going to be using today are carbide tip scraper, a small bowl gouge, a large spindle gouge with a regular grind, a small spindle gouge, same grind, a round nose scraper, and then a small detail spindle gouge with a swept back fingernail grind, a thin parting tool, a Jacob's chuck with a Forstner bit, and a carbide tip hollowing tool. Well, I went to the bandsaw and I nipped the ends off of the pod that I have mounted right now. So I've mounted it between centers and we're going to start roughing it out. Now I could use my roughing gouge, but I'd be sharpening every 2-3 passes. These things are really, really hard. So I'm going to use a carbide tip scraper to help me rough it out. So we'll start the lathe up. I've got the speed set around about 1,000 RPM. The tool is straight and level as I present it. I'm just going to push it in like that. Now the nice thing about a carbide tip is that you don't have to sharpen them. You simply turn it, keep using up all the good edges, and once you're done, you throw it away and get another one. But I have roughed out about 10 Banksia pods with this one edge right now. So it lasts a long time and it saves me from doing a lot of sharpening. Now the hidden surprise with Banksia pods is the fact that this was a flower beforehand and you have all this red velvet coming off, and this stuff is amazing. Now if I didn't have to talk to you, I'd have a full face mask on for respiration purposes. I do have a HEPA filter running in the background right now, but you don't want to breathe this too much. But the thing that's really important right now is this is a natural product, so it's all lumpy in different shapes, and I want to find out if I have enough meat here that I can actually make a tenon to go into my chuck. So let's see how we're doing here. I've got my caliper set with the diameter for my chuck jaws, and that's just about right. And let's see, does that look like I have enough? No, see, that's fuzzy there, so I'm gonna have to work my way up a little bit more and find a good solid surface that I can make a tenon out of. Okay, let's see. With the same diameter, and it's good solid meat, wood, whatever you want to call it, all the way around, so I can make a tenon off that. That's good. I'll just get rid of this excess here because I don't want this bottoming out in the chuck when I reverse it here in a second and put it in the jaws. Okay. I reversed the pod in the chuck, and it's being held by the jaws. And what I've been doing for the last few minutes is shaping our egg shape, and it's just like a bead. You sneak up on it a little bit at a time. This is going to be the top, and then this is going to be the bottom of the box. I want to leave this thick though because we have to have that support for hollowing here in just a minute. Now let me look at this real quick. One little more cut right here. We're going to take feathers of wood off. I'm rubbing the bevel. I'm lifting the handle and swinging my body at the same time to make this cut. And there we go. That looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is I need to part the top off. And I want to figure out about where that's going to be. That's going to be about 2/3 of the way up. So we're thinking about right here. That's about 1/3 of it. And this is going to be waste. That's going to go away in a second. and we're at the right level with the tool rest, so I'll go ahead and start this up. Now this is a very thin parting tool, because we don't want to put a big gap in here. We're going to try to match up the holes in the pod when we put this whole piece together. So I just stepped over just a little bit right there, because if I don't do that, the pod would heat up, swell up, and catch the tool, and it'd bind and flip the tool out of my hand. Now another thing to keep in mind is you're going down here, pods are very fragile. You don't want to take this too thin or it'll snap on the lathe. And we're getting really close right now. I want to slow my speed down a bit. I'm actually going to back off the tailstock so I don't have it bind in case it does pop off of here. Now, I'll go ahead and catch it while we're here. There we go. Okay, that came off. That's the top. We're going to save that. Our next step, though, is going to be drilling a hole. Okay, well, I've mounted a 1 1/4 inch Forstner bit into my Jacobs chuck, which has a Morse taper so it fits in my tailstock. We're going to start this up, and I'm going to bring the speed down. We want it to be about 300 to 500 RPM. We don't want to build up a lot of heat when we hollow as we drill this out. Now, depending on your Banksia pod, depends upon the size of the hole you're going to drill. You can see I'm leaving a lot of meat there because I want to leave room for hollowing later. We need to leave the walls kind of thick. You can see the chips come out with this Forstner bit, which is nice. I don't have to keep cleaning out the chips as I go in. Also, I'm just going to take this till it bottoms out. It'll be the perfect depth for the hole I need. There we go. Whoa, what a sound. Did I ever mention hearing protection is extremely important? What? Eh? Huh? Oh, man. Okay, I want to make this lip really flat now. Wow, that'll get your attention. So I'm taking a flat piece of wood with sandpaper on it, it's just a sanding block. And by holding this up here, it flattens this edge. And we need this edge perfectly flat because it's going to accept the wood we're getting ready to turn in the next step. Let's see, I'm going to want my small bowl gouge for this. I've got another chuck on here with a waste piece of wood mounted in here. I used double-sided tape to hold a piece of Purple Heart. Now the nice thing about your wood when you buy it in board form, usually one side is plain flat, and I know that side is perfectly flat, so I've got it stuck up there. I just want to make sure this side's really flat, and I want to round this out a little bit to boot. So I'm going to turn the speed up a bit, and we're going to take our bowl gouge, and we're just going to carefully round this out. Now I measured this to be just slightly larger than the diameter of the lip of the Banksia pod bowl right now, the box part. But I don't want to take too much wood off because I don't have a lot to play with. So we'll come in here, I can still feel it bouncing a little bit. There we go, we're into solid wood now. Okay, and then I'm going to slow it down a little bit. I'm going to bring my sanding block back up, and we'll just pop that out of the way, and we'll sand this side flat again. Flat is your friend. You want to make sure that all these surfaces, the Banksia pod and the Purple Heart, are perfectly flat. For when we glue them together, we don't want any seams. Okay, I've been waiting for the glue to dry. I didn't want to put you through that process, but what we did is with some cyanoacrylate glue, the thick stuff, so I had time to work with it, I've glued the Purple Heart between the bottom and the top of the box and used my tailstock to give it pressure. I also sanded the edge of this by hand very, very flat so it would mate perfectly so we have no gaps. The next step is we want to create the tenon that goes inside the box. So I'm going to start parting this wood down. I'm not going to shape the outside, but I'm going to build that tenon on the inside and part these two pieces apart. That way we can start making our lid. Now we're going to go back to our thin parting tool, very narrow, it's about 1/16 of an inch. Start the lathe up. Now I want the lip, let me turn the speed up a little bit more there. I want the lip to be about 1/16 of an inch wide on each end here, so we'll part in. That looks good. We'll make our relief cut. And I want to be very, very flat with this, and I can sand this in later to make sure it's perfectly flat. So we're going to keep working our way back this way, because I want to work towards the lid and make that 1/16 of an inch also. Now, keep in mind, I'm watching the profile. Right there is about the outer diameter of that lip. I want it to go in about another 1/8 of an inch to make my tenon. So we'll cut in a little bit more, about there, about there. I'm gonna make sure I'm right. I'm gonna go in a little bit deeper. I'd rather be on the safe side of this. If you make this tenon too narrow, you're gonna have a very thick lip though on your box and it won't look very nice. Okay, now I'm making this perfectly parallel. I wanna make a beautiful side on there. So now I'll just keep working out the rest of this Purple Heart, and we're gonna part the lid off from the bottom of the box here. Then we'll remount everything in a minute and finish shaping the box. Well, now I've got my calipers, and I'm taking the measurement of that tenon that I left on here. And I'm going to take that measurement and transfer it over to the lid of the box. And I'm going to hold that down, make a scratch mark. There. It's matching up with that tip now, so I have that diameter marked. So I'll bring out my little parting tool again. Remember, this is hollow inside to a point because I drilled. I'm just going to come in here and get rid of some of this excess wood by parting in. And this should just pop right out. Here it's getting thin. There it goes. Stop that real quick. There we go. Pull that out of the way. Now I'm just going to take the parting tool and work my way over, bit by bit, to that diameter that I marked and test fit the lid. And it's going to take several attempts to get this lid to fit perfectly. So while I'm doing that, it's time for your turn. Nope. There was a term I was asked about recently, and you may not have even heard about it before, and it's called wind shake. A wind shake is caused by the wind. As it blows through the tree, it whips the branches and it moves the trunk around, and it can do it so violently it will separate the growth rings inside the tree. And you won't know about it until you start turning. When this bowl was being turned, it had a tailstock up and boom, this popped out. The growth rings weren't even touching any other part of the tree. A little bit deeper, boom, same thing. And then when you look at the side here, wham, that was actually in there while it was green. It's a rare condition, but it's very dangerous. Our buddy Larry Elizondo was turning a piece like this, and he had wind shake. A piece came flying off, went across the shop, and stuck in the wall. So don't be afraid of it, just be aware of it and keep your eye out for wind shake. Okay, now I got the tenon to fit. As you can see, it's a lot narrower now here where they meet together, but my shape's a little bit off. So we're going to start this up, and we're going to use my small spindle gouge to just refine the outside shape of the pod. It's a little catchy, be careful. What you want to do is you want to do this with this pressed together with the tailstock, because if you didn't have that pressure up there, the Purple Heart would just rip out. So we're using the pressure of the tailstock to hold things together for us right now. And you can see we've lost about a 1/16 of an inch in the diameter because the Purple Heart spread out the piece and ruined the shape we had going. Not exactly ruined it, just modified it. And what I want to do as I get closer to the tip here is I want to make a little bead that will help receive the finial we're going to turn in a moment. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to switch to my shallow detail spindle gouge to help me make this. I'm going to turn the lathe off, and we're going to lower the tool rest. Okay, with the tool rest lowered, we'll start this back up. I'm going to pick the speed up a little bit again, a little bit more, because we're turning a small diameter here. Now I love the shallow detail spindle gouge because it helps you do really delicate cuts. There we go. I'm making the base, the bottom side of the bead right now. And we're going to just roll the tool. We want to clear out some of this wood here. There we go. There we go. Sneak up on a bead no matter what size it is. Now once I get the bead made here, I'm actually going to put a little bit of masking tape on here to hold the lid on. I'm going to part away the extra wood. And after I do that, I'm going to drill a small hole in the top. And that's actually going to receive a little tenon from the finial that we're going to turn a little bit later. Okay, well, I've got my Halloween rig set up. If you watch the show, you're familiar with this. I've got my laser set to about 1/8 of an inch thickness for the wall. And there's the lid with the hole drilled in it, which will receive the finial and a little tenon in a little bit. And so the next job here is we're going to just slowly, gently start hollowing this out. You could use a scraper. This is a round carbide cutting tip. Very, very small. It's about the smallest one they make. If you use a scraper, these walls are very fragile because banksia pods are very brittle. And a scraper just might break out the wall as you go along. So we're just going to work our way back and forth and slowly nibble our way in and hollow this out. Now, as you work your way in, make sure that you leave the inside surface as clean, as smooth as possible because you won't be able to sand the inside of this. So you want to leave a tool finish on here that looks like a sanded finish. And you just use delicate little pull cuts and you smooth it out, work your way down, smooth it out, work your way down. It's kind of like turning a bowl. So once you've done this part, you never go back to it. You keep going further in. So make sure that's exactly the way you want it before you move on. Now, what I've done here is I have a waste piece of wood that I've shaped to be the exact same shape of the top of the pod. This is double-sided tape. I'm going to push this in and get this to center up nicely, and then we're going to use the tape to come out to the sides. I don't need it to hold that way, but if you don't leave tape out of the sides, it's hard to pull this thing back out. Okay, now that that's there, I'm going to turn this on. Looks beautifully centered. And we're going to take our little scraper here and we're going to hollow out the inside of the lid here just to give it a more delicate look. There we go. Just a little bit of sanding and we're on to the next step. Yo, Brian, over here. I've switched on y'all. I'm going to work from this side. I'll explain that in a second. But where we are right now is we do have our pod finished. Off camera, I went ahead and shaped this down and parted it off. Left a little stub of a tenon on here that's going to help me center this on the stem when we turn that. But right now, we're going to be working on the top and we're going to be turning the finial that goes on top of the lid. And I've got a piece of ebony mounted here in the lathe. And the reason I'm on the other side is because I'm right-handed and it's a lot easier for me to turn from this side because if I was on the other side, my left-hand side would be hitting the headstock and I wouldn't be able to make the shapes I need. Yes, you should be able to turn left and right-handed. It is a very nice technique to have down, but some days you feel like you can do that, some days you don't. But I'm using a spindle gouge right now just to narrow down the wood. And we're going to start shaping this. So this will be the tip, spinning, this will be the tip of the finial that goes on top. Just going to take the wood down in increments. Now we want a little teardrop point right here, but we can't finish it off. We're using the tailstock for stability right now, so we'll just get a rough idea of where it's going to be. That looks good. So we'll keep working the wood down like this. And I was doing a demonstration the other day, and I was turning a finial, and a very astute man in the audience made a comment. He said, "Finials grow." And I really didn't know what he's talking about. And I said, "Excuse me," and he said, "Yeah, finials grow." And then I realized that he's absolutely right. You'll turn this and you'll think you have the most delicate finial on earth. And then when you take it off and you put it on top of your project, it's going to be big and fat and ugly. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Make sure you take off enough wood to make this thing delicate, because it's very easy to make a fat and ugly finial. If you want some inspiration, look, search the name Cindy Drozda. She is the queen of finials, and they're the perfect example of delicate and good shape and form. Now I've got the spindle there on the finial as thin as I want it. I'm going to come back here and clean this up a little bit. It's ebony, so it's a little dark. It's a little hard to see. But I want to go ahead and make this tip shape now, and then get rid of the tailstock because I don't need it after this point. Gently curving in. There's a hole in here from the tip of the live center, so that's what I'm trying to get rid of. But I'm going to very delicately come in here, and I want this to part off really about on my final cut, because I'll lose a lot of support once this goes away. So you want this tip to be perfect. Whoops. Okay, now what happened? That happens sometimes. It snapped off, and you can see that it's a little bit stumpy. So I'm going to bring my finger in here as a support and very gently clean that up. Delicate procedure at this point. That's why I'm using ebony, though. It's a very hard wood, but it makes it also very forgiving at that point. And there, we have a perfect little tip on here. Get a little more shape to it. That looks nice. Now we'll start working our way back down. There we go. Sand that to 12,000 grit. And we're moving on to the foot. Okay, well, I have a piece of ebony mounted in here that's going to become the foot of the Banksia pod box. And you can see I already turned the stem that's going to go right here. And one important aspect on this, you can see it's real tiny, hard to see. I've turned a little tenon on here, and we're going to drill a hole right now into the ebony so I can put the stem in. It'll help me with the assembly process, and it's pretty simple. I'm just going to take a small bit here. Really doesn't matter what size you use, just as long as you're consistent. And we'll turn this on, and we'll bring it up here. It's going to center itself, and then we just self-feed it in. There we go. I don't want to go too deep because I don't want to go through the bottom of the foot. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the foot to shape, and then once we've parted it off and finished it, we're going to be assembling this. Well, there we go. The last little bit of glue has dried, and we can now show our fully assembled Banksia pod box with finial and foot. I hope my sister enjoys it, and as you can see, after a couple hand rub coats of polyurethane, it'll look just as beautiful as our original. And Susan, this one is for you. So until next time on the Wood Turning Workshop, keep turning.
Next time on the Wood Turning Workshop.
We're going to be making a segmented bowl. We'll be visiting the AAW Symposium for some expert advice, and then coming back and talking to one of our good friends, Bob Hawks, who's going to help us through the entire process. What can I help you with?
Why don't you just glue both sides a little bit,
Okay.
and I'll pull them together and clamp them. Cut the dado first, and then fit this next ring.
That's going to be a lot easier to see than to do.
For more information about the Wood Turning Workshop, visit our website at rsupublictv.org.
Today, we're going to be working with These are like pine cones. Pine cones. Gone ahead and mounted a piece of ebony here for the ebony here. A piece of ebony in here that's going to be the ebony.
The Wood Turning Workshop is made possible in part by
Woodcraft, since 1928, providing traditional and modern woodworking tools and supplies to generations of craftsmen. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Easy Wood Tools, offering a full line of wood turning tools with replaceable carbide cutters. To purchase a copy of this program, please call 1-800-823-7210 or visit our website, rsupublictv.org.
This week on the Wood Turning Workshop, we're going to make a birthday gift for my sister, a Banksia Pod box. The next step is we want to create the tenon that goes inside the box. Susan, this one's for you.